Welcome to Thoughts Roundup. It's Friday. I don't consider anything I'm doing as deep or that sort of thing, but on Friday I even try to make it lighter. Somehow or another, I just kind of like to end the week with something just a little bit lighter than what we usually talk about. I want to talk about how that. Now, what I'm going to say is that there's a lot of people, and maybe even some that's a little older, does not know what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about sitting up with the dead. Whenever I was a boy, coming up, when someone died, they brought them home. Now, at the time they would put them in the front room. They'd put them in the front room, and there they would stay until it was time to take them to the cemetery. Well, we set up all night. We never just put somebody there and leave them. We set up with them. That's called setting up with the dead. And of course, people had brought in food to eat and that sort of thing. And I remember setting up with my grandfather all night long. I never batted an eye. I sat up, I stayed awake. I drank old strong coffee and whatever it took to stay awake, because you just wanted to stay awake with Grandpa. And you just was hoping he'd somehow know that you didn't forsake him. Well, Jerry Clower, the old humorist, he was one of the best, as you that remember him know. He was one of the best. And one of his characters were the Ledbetters and Uncle Versi and Marcel. Well, some of their folks died, and there's already, they took them to the funeral home at that time, but they still set up all night at the funeral home. I can remember that carried on over from the house to the funeral home. And so Jerry's telling this old story, and he said at 11 o'clock that night, the funeral director came and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, it's 11 o'clock. We're closing. You can come back in the morning at 8 o'clock. And Uncle Versi said, Now, Mr. Funeral Man, I want to tell you something. Y'all just go on. Go on home. Lock up and go on home if you want to, because we ain't never let none of our kin set up all night, to be there all night by themselves. So we're just going to stay. Y'all just go on home. We'll be here in the morning." Well, they was setting up. The funeral director said, "Okay," and they was setting up, and 3 o'clock in the morning, they got to looking out the window, and they was thirsty and wanting some coffee or something, and a cold drink or something, and it's hard to stay awake at 3 o'clock in the morning. They looked out the window and they saw a beer joint over there, and the lights was on. So one of them said, I'm gonna go over there and get us something to drink." He said, "No, you're not leaving me here in this funeral home. No, sir. He said, I'm going with you. He said, well, we can't leave the man that's dead. And he said, well, let's take him with us. So they got him up out of the casket. They put one arm over one, each one had an arm around his neck, and they was letting his feet touch the parking lot to going over there. And I guess people will see it, just think, well, somebody's drunk. And they got over there and they set the corpse on a stool and leaned him up against a stanchion. And he was sitting up there. They said he was the best dressed man in the bar room. And they ordered him a big orange drink. And they was sitting there drinking. And all of a sudden, a fight broke out. Fight broke out. And somebody hit the dead man. And he fell out on the floor. And Marcel ran over there to him and got down and said, oh, you killed him, you killed him, you killed him. And the law came in, and the law said to the guy, he said, did you hit that man? He said, yes, sir, I hit him. I admit that I hit him. But he said, I didn't hit him until he drew that knife on me. When he drew that knife on me, I hit him. Well, welcome to the program. You didn't get much out of it today. God bless.